shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow over me, and it's dark.
How's it going, everyone? Sean here from Raw Technique Studios. This is a free mix and master that I just finished up a couple days ago, so now I'm going to make the video so you guys can see kind of the uniqueness of this mix, the steps that we took to get the sound. And shout out to the artist, Delirious, and the name of the song is Shadow Over Me. So I'll have his information here on the screen as well as down below. You can check out his links, his SoundCloud, his iTunes, and so on. So let's jump into it and see what we did in this mix. I have the vocal, this is the hook, soloed out right now. And let me show you before we did anything here what it sounded like. And then I'll start adding in plugins to let you know, or so you could hear the steps that were taken.
I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow over me, and it's dark.
Alright, so that's what the vocal sounded like, just sent over, no mixing. That was just the dry recording. Then what I did was started with the de-esser. So I'll pull them up here. Because it's a panned left and right, I'm going to have both layers going at the same time, so it's not just panned to the one side. Alright, so here's the de-esser. Pulled it down to 4,576, so around that area, to get the sibilance that I'm trying to take out. So then I just pulled down the threshold so I could hit the S's, the T's, any of that sibilance, and make sure it's not in the vocal. So with that on,
I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow.
Alright, so you can see the attenuation pulling down any sibilance. So whenever he says shadow, the S, those type of letters will get pulled down, so it's a little bit more even and not as harsh. Up next is EQ, and on this you can hear there's a lot of bass in this voice and it's kind of muffled sounding, so I'm trying to clean it up a bit with this EQ. So I'm taking out the lower end, the body right here I took a bit out, and then a little bit of a problem frequency right here at around a little over 1K. So now it's sounding like this.
Over me, and it's dark. I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow.
Alright, so it just cleans it up a bit. And then compression to make it to where it's more even. So even if you just look at the waveforms, you could see that there's higher peaks here, and then there's really quiet parts here. So it's to make it so the quiet parts are a little bit louder, and the louder parts a little more even with the lower, and then the overall signal is just turned up a little bit.
I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow over me, over me.
Alright, and just to show you the compressor, 3-to-1 ratio, a attack that's, it's not extremely fast, it's not extremely slow, it's a little in the middle just so I can still get a natural response in the vocal. The release is backed off a little bit. It's not a super fast release, so I don't get extra room tone coming back in on the vocal. And I'm just hitting it to where I get about -3 or so you can see right here.
I got this shadow over me, over me.
So I'm averaging about -3 on the attenuation, and then I'm just going to put that back in on the gain. Up next is an enhancer. This is just to add some harmonics into it, and I added the high gain at close to 4K.
I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow.
Alright, so that's just making it nice and crispy in the high end. It adds some harmonics to it. Up next, I felt like there's still too much bass in the vocals. So what I did was jumped in with a stock EQ and just took out more of the lower end here and cleaned it up a bit. And this is what it sounded like.
I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow over me, over me.
Alright, So that is just to get a more clean vocal. If you want more bass in your vocal, then you just leave a little bit more. I felt like that fit the song better, so I took that much of the low end out. And then up next, I set up a reverb, an exciter, and a delay. You can see here on my aux inputs, I have my reverb set up here. On this one, I have a exciter. On this one, it's an Enigma plugin. I'm not using that right here, but that's set up for a different part. And this last one here is my lo-fi, which is another one that I'm not using right here. And then lastly, I have down here my delay using Echo Boy. All right, so we just heard it with the basic vocal chain, to where we have it de-essed, reductive EQing, compression, enhancer, and the final EQ to just clean it up. And then I wanted to add in a couple things to make it a little bit more interesting. So
I got this shadow over me, over me.
that's the original, or that's the vocal after just the basic vocal chain. And then I wanted to add in some reverb.
I got this shadow over me, over me.
All right, so I don't put too much. It's about -12 on the reverb, and I just have a stock deverb in the plate setting. And then what I wanted to do was add an exciter, and this is just to add a little bit more harmonics, a little bit more crispiness to it.
I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow over me, over me.
All right, and that is this one right here, the Affix Vintage Oral Exciter. And I tend to like the dark mix setting under mastering, but then I play with the aux mix to give it a little bit less or more depending on the vocal and the song. Up on my last part over this vocal is a delay, and let's go down to the delay here. And I set it up so it is a ping pong delay. It's going left, right, and I have it at a quarter note, so you'll hear the delay going into your left speaker, your right speaker, and there's no feedback on it, so it's a single repeat left, single repeat right.
I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow over me, over me.
All right, so you can hear it bouncing back and forth like that. You could decide how much of that you want in there on your send. So I have it at -8. If I wanted a bunch in there, then I could go, let's just put it at 0 so you could really hear it over exaggerated.
I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow over me.
Right. So it sounds cool, but when it's loud like that, it's a little bit distracting from the actual hook itself. You are listening to the delays so much that it takes away from the original hook. So I didn't want it that loud, so I backed it off to about -8.5 or so, and ended up with that.
I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow.
All right, so the thing with effects like reverbs, delays, the whole thing is, unless it's really needed, which it's usually not, don't overuse them. Just put them in there lightly and it'll sound a lot better. It's better to not take away from the original parts of the song. You want to add to it, make it more interesting, but you don't want to take away focus and overdo it. So let's listen with the beat in there now.
I got this shadow over me. I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow over me, over me. I got this shadow over me, and it's dark.
Alright, so there it is. That's the chain and the effects for the hook. Now, if we come up here, let me just show you the Enigma setting. So up here on this part, we have this is the Enigma. And what I'm going to do is take off reverb, exciter, and lo-fi so you can just hear the Enigma effect. And let's pull it up so you can see what it looks like as well. Alright, and this one, it's just one of the settings. What is it? Hallucino spread or something like that. So this is what it sounds like. I'll turn it up so it's over exaggerated, but then I'm going to back it back off to -17 where I had it.
Shadow over me, and it won't leave me alone. Spitting up the blood, sitting in a dark throne. Tell me what you know before it's ripping out your throat.
All right. So you hear that it's on the left and the right. It's that pingy, like excessive delay of the higher frequencies. So let's take a listen to that.
Shadow over me, and it won't leave me alone. Spitting up the blood, sitting in a dark throne. Tell me what you know before it's ripping out your throat. Praying to our God while we worshiping the goat.
All right, so I backed it off to about -17. I like it in there, but again, overusing your effects could be a distraction instead of an enhancement. So try not to overuse them unless it sounds cool. Whatever sounds good is what you're going to end up going with. Just don't overdo it. But just that Enigma sound gives it like a delay and a reverb all in one. But I wanted to add to that and add in a little bit of reverb.
Shadow over me, and it won't leave me alone. Spit.
All right. And then I went in with the exciter for a little bit more of that crispy harmonics.
Shadow over me, and it won't leave me alone.
And then lastly, lo-fi. And let me show you that one, which is down here. This is just a stock plugin in Pro Tools. And I took the sample rate down just one step. And I also added in 6.6 on the saturation. This gives it a little bit more of a gritty sound. And a little bit of distortion as well. So let me turn that up so you could hear it. I'm going to turn off all the other effects. So you're just going to hear the lo-fi.
Spitting up the blood, sitting in a dark throne. Tell me what you know before.
So notice when I turn it up on my send, you're going to hear that saturated sound. So what I'm doing is oversaturating it and blending that with our original vocal.
It's ripping out your throat, praying to our God while we worshiping the goat. Shadow over me, and it won't leave me alone.
All right, so the whole point of that is just to get a little bit more grit to it. And then we end up with this, and I have my other vocals to blend it. This one here is a high pitch. I just pitched it up. This one here is a low pitch. It's pitched down, and it's spread left and right.
Shadow over me, and it won't leave me alone. Spitting up the blood, sitting in a dark throne. Tell me what you know before it's ripping out your throat. Praying to our God while we worshiping the goat. Shadow over me, and it won't leave me alone. Spitting up the blood.
Alright, so those are all the effects used throughout this song. Hopefully you guys could take away some tips and apply that to your own stuff. So go ahead, check out that artist, and I have all this stuff down below. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys liked it, please hit that like button. If you can, subscribe to the channel, comment below if you have any questions or comments. And I'll see you guys in the next video.